theyeshiva.net.
Welcome everybody, good morning, thank you for joining us. I'm excited to start a new Maamer with you today. This week is Parshas Pinchas, and we're coming up to Parshas Matos-Masei next week. So we're going to begin a new Maamer that will continue Be'ezer Hashem this week, and then we'll continue it also next week. As always, you can ask your questions live, and I believe Nader will stop at some point and address your questions. You can either ask your questions on the chat in the Zoom room, or you can go to theyeshiva.net if you're watching there, and right below the video or near the video it says ask your question. You can put in your question there, and please open the source sheets. We're ready to begin. This Maamer, this Chassidic discourse in Chassidus and Hashkafa and Machshava that we're going to begin today, Be'ezer Hashem, was presented by the Lubavitcher Rebbe during the Farbrengen of Shabbos Parshas Matos-Masei, which was Mevorchim HaChodesh Menachem Av, the Shabbos before Chodesh Av, in the year Tovshin Yud Beis, 1952. The Maamer is based on previous discourses and essays of Chabad Chassidus, already from the Baal HaTanya and his successors throughout the generations. But the Rebbe took these ideas from the Baal HaTanya and his successors and developed them and elaborates on them and explains them and expounds on them in this Maamer. It's a very, as you would say in Yiddish, a geschmacke, gedichte Maamer, which means it's delicious, it's delightful. And in many ways, I think when we internalize the ideas, it can be absolutely life-changing and deeply transformative in our own lives. As I mentioned in the clip that went around, it really deals with fundamental ideas, both in terms of the internal struggle and condition of man, as well as the cosmic struggle, and explores some very powerful and fundamental ideas in Yiddishkeit and in the Hashkafa of Yiddishkeit. We're going to learn this during this week, and God willing also next week. I saw a question why we're learning Parshas Matos-Masei and Parshas Pinchas. And the answer is because we wouldn't have time Parshas Matos-Masei, so I wanted to do it earlier so we could hopefully be finished or close to finished when it comes to Shabbos Parshas Matos-Masei. Okay, so please look inside and let's begin. Again, there are source sheets everybody could follow inside on theyeshiva.net. Above the video on the right is a blue icon, source sheets. Below the video on the red, in red, there's a red icon, PDF on the left. Either of them will give you the source sheet so you could follow inside. This is the text of the Maamer in Lashon Kodesh. As was always with the Chabad Rebbes, they would speak on Shabbos or Yom Tov, and there was a group of chayzrim, of memorizers and transcribers who would transcribe the Torah and the teachings after Shabbos. This already began with the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, who had 5 writers, his brother, the Maharil, and 2 of his sons, and a Chassid and a grandson. And this continued throughout the generations by the Rebbe, by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the 7th Rebbe. It's also the same tradition and the same custom, even if not people of the same caliber in the times of the Baal HaTanya, who would memorize and transcribe the talks, including the Maamarim of Shabbos that the Rebbe would usually say in the middle of a Shabbos afternoon Farbrengen. It had many talks, many sichos, but it was usually also a Maamer, which was taking a theme, an idea in the teachings of Chassidus that originated in the Baal HaTanya, the founder of Chabad, and develop it and apply it and personalize it and expound on it and explain it. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Leimer. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, this is in Parshas Masei, Perik Lamed Hey, Pasuk Tes. That's the end of the book of Numbers, chapter 35, verse 9 through 11. And Hashem tells Moshe, talking about a case where somebody kills another human being inadvertently, what we call b'shaygig. There is a case of murder which is premeditated, and it's willing, it's done willingly, volitionally, that's called a mazid. But here the Torah addresses that case, but it also addresses the case of a shaygig. It wasn't completely a coerced situation where completely inadvertently, like mamish out of control. But a shaygig is something where the person was negligent. They could have been more careful, but certainly they did not have in mind to kill somebody. And the classic example of that is, a person is on a tree, the Torah says, and he wants to fell the tree or chop wood, and he has this big axe, but there's people around. And, such as he doesn't want to kill anybody, but the axe falls or the wood falls, and somebody dies. So the Torah says, in all these situations where you kill somebody inadvertently, V'hikrisem lachem arim, you have to designate for yourselves cities. Are miklat tiyena lachem. These should be cities of refuge. And that's the place where the killer, the one who struck down another soul and killed it inadvertently, b'shgaga, that's where he or she runs into the Ari Miklat, into the cities of refuge. This is the mitzvah, one of the mitzvahs discussed in Parshas Matos-Masei, and indeed this was the custom and tradition in the Jewish world. They had designated in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael, on the western side of the Jordan River, 6 cities of refuge. There were another 3 on the Transjordan, on the eastern side of the Jordan River. And these cities were called Ari Miklat, cities of escape or cities of protection, of refuge, where people who would murder somebody inadvertently, obviously there was a court case, the court had to decide and make sure this was the case. He would remain in those cities of refuge, and there the person was obligated to remain, and they would provide him with all of his needs, and there the person would remain and be protected. They had to remain there until the death of the Kohen Gadol, of the high priest who was serving in the Beis HaMikdash, in the sanctuary, the temple at the time. The Medrash Rabbah on this pasuk, Bimkaima means in its place, meaning sometimes there's a Medrash Rabbah elsewhere. But this is Bimkaima, on the pasuk. If you open up a Medrash Rabbah is of course the basic commentary of the sages, of the generations of the Tanoim on the Chumash and the Tanakh, all of the Tanakh, where a lot of elucidation is presented, a lot of interpretation, a lot of homiletics, and many of the oral traditions of the sages expounding the various verses in the Torah are found in Medrash. So the Medrash Rabbah usually, as I discussed many times when we discuss Medrash, has this angle. It gives you a certain angle on a pasuk that you wouldn't naturally assume when you're reading the pasuk. And here is an example, which is classic Medrash, where the Medrash basically introduces a whole different story, which at first glance is a strange comparison, a juxtaposition, and that's the story of Adam and Chava eating from the tree. Let's see the Medrash. Zeh Shamar HaKosav, the Medrash says, when you read these verses about running away into a city of refuge, when you read these verses, now you can understand another pasuk. This is a pasuk that is familiar to many people. It's Tehillim chapter 25. And according to the Nusach of the Arizal, those who daven according to the Arizal, they say this every single morning. Whenever you say Tachanon, after you do the confession, you fall and you sit down and you, what's called Nefilas Apayim, the face is reclined, and the person says the kapitel. So different versions, you say different nuschayas, different prayers, but according to the Arizal, you say Tehillim chapter 25, L'David Elecha Hashem Nafshi Yesel. So he says, Zeh Shamar HaKosav, over there, David HaMelech says, Toiv v'yasher Adonai, al kein yorech hatoim badarach. God is good and just, and hence he guides sinners on the road. And this comes right after a previous verse. Schoi rachamecha Adonai v'chasadecha ki me'olam heima. Remember God, your compassion, remember your kindness, because they are from time immemorial. Me'olam, they've always been there. And then the pasuk continues, Chatois ne'ura yivshai al tizka k'chaz chazchali atal mantuvcha Hashem, Toi v'yasher Hashem al ken yorech hatoim badarach. Says the Medrash, I want you to understand what King David, what David HaMelech was saying. Amar David was saying, Ribono shel olam, master of the world, Ilu lechasadecha shekadmu l'adam harishon lo haya lo yamida, shenemar b'yoyim acholcha mimenu mois tumas v'lo yasisa loikein. Eloi tzeisa isu megan Eden v'chai tov tov kuf lamer shana. Ma asisa loi girashta isu megan Eden. V'lama gittin is garish al shehevi misa al adoyrus v'yichayev misa. Ela sherichamta lo v'girashtoi kederech haritzeach b'shgaga shegoylem imkaimoi. The Medrash says as follows. David tells Hashem, master of the world, if not for your special kindness that preceded the creation of the first human being, he would have never endured. Why? You told him, you can eat from all the trees in the garden, but from that tree, which is called the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you should not eat. The day you eat from it, you shall die. What happens? Indeed, Adam and Chava eat from that tree. You would expect, right after they ate, they should have died. They did not. Hashem told them, the day you will eat from it, you will die. But he did not die after he ate from it, nor did his wife die. What happened? Hashem took him out and her out of Gan Eden, of the paradise, the Garden of Eden, where they were situated. But how long did Adam live for? The Torah says Adam lived for 930 years. No, not bad for somebody who got a death sentence. God said, the day you eat from it, you will die. Well, that day continued almost a millennium. He lived for 930 years. Instead, you expelled him from Gan Eden. Why did you expel him from Gan Eden? You threw him out of Gan Eden because he brought death on all of the generations after him. And he himself was obligated to die. But you had compassion. And instead, you expelled him from Gan Eden. In other words, what verdict did you give him? You didn't take his life. You exiled him. He was living in a particular place called the Garden of Eden, and you sent him into exile. That's exactly the fate of whom? Of somebody who kills somebody inadvertently. So you commuted the death sentence of Adam and Chava for eating of the tree of knowledge instead of them dying, which you told them they're going to die. You did something else. What did you do? You sent them into exile, like somebody who kills someone else inadvertently. B'shaygik. This is how the Medrash explains the psukim. Remember your compassion and your kindness, because they were there from the beginning. Your compassion was there before Adam Arishon even existed. As the Medrash says here, I'm looking at the original Medrash. The Rebbe quotes the whole Medrash. Kimei Olam Heima means this is the kindness that you had in the beginning of the creation of the world before Adam. Because Adam apparently was supposed to die, that's what you told him, but instead he atoned for his mistake. How? By going through to exile, everything was changed. And the Rebbe explains the Medrash, the Chet Eitz Hadas Haya B'mezit. What's the Medrash telling us? The sin of eating of the tree of knowledge was not a mistake. It was not done inadvertently. It was b'mezit. It was with volition. It was with premeditated intention. Biratzen. But the attribute of compassion and kindness of the divine judged Adam as though it was a shaygig. It was an error. This is what David HaMelech is saying. Remember your compassion and kindness, because they are mei olam. What does kimei olam mean? The be'ez bria sa olam. Hainu mei olam. Hainu bizman chet oitzadal shaya betchilas abriya. Hayaz gili arachim v'chasadim shalamayla. Because already during the creation of the world, when Adam Arishon transgressed the sin of eating of the tree of knowledge, which of course happens right in the beginning of the story of creation. Adam is created on the first Friday, and following that, he right away eats from the tree. The Gemara says in Masechah Sanhedrin that it happened the very same day he was created. I think with the 10th hour, he was created in the morning, in the 10th hour, around, let's say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, approximately, Erev Shabbos. He got hungry and he ate from the Eitz Hadas. A few hours before Shabbos, just a few hours before Shabbos. So this happened in the beginning of creation. And then there was a tremendous display of kindness and compassion to commute a sin that was done willingly and treated as though it was done by a mistake, and hence the verdict was transformed from taking Adam's life as God told him he would. What happens? He sends him into exile. He says, time to leave Gan Eden, go live elsewhere, which is the law of Torah of the Ari Miklat, the city of refuge. This is basically what the Medrash says. Now you see the connection of the psukim. Your kindness comes from the beginning of creation, and then the next pasuk, 2 psukim later, what does he say? Toy v'yotcher Hashem al kein yorech hatoyim badarech. He guides the sinners on the road. Which road? He says you can go to the city of refuge and be protected. Chatoyim is the person who killed somebody by mistake. So yorech, God gives him a path and says, here, go from your city to the city of refuge and you will be protected. Just as he did Mei Olam in the beginning of creation with Adam and Chava, he sent them on the road out of Gan Eden, on the road towards a place that was outside of paradise, and there their sin was taken care of. That's basically the Medrash Rabbah's interpretation on the verses that deal with running into the city of refuge. Umizem move on. From this we understand something. What's the connection between these two stories? Why is the Medrash talking about eating from the tree of knowledge when we're talking about killing somebody by mistake? So he says, we see from here that the sin of the tree of knowledge had an element of murder to it. They ate a fruit. Where's the murder? It had an element of murder to it. However, there was a special display of compassion that caused this act of murder to be judged not as a volitional act, but as an inadvertent act, as a shoygig. But the whole premise needs explanation. What is the connection between eating of the tree of knowledge and Chalila taking somebody's life and saying that it should have been, Adam should have died, because it's like he murdered somebody, and that's why Hashem told him you're going to die. But then Hashem commuted the sentence to expulsion, like somebody who killed somebody by mistake. But what do we see from this whole medrash? That there's a premise here, there's an underlying idea that Chet Tzadas is compared, somehow reflects or initiated or is connected on some level with Hoyrig Nefesh, with taking somebody's soul, God forbid, with taking somebody's life. What is the basis of all of this? Now, what do you see from this medrash, besides what the Rebbe is saying? You see from this medrash a certain approach, which you see in medrashim constantly. And that is, and this is an important thing to emphasize, and I hope you can appreciate and understand what I'm going to say now and really internalize it so that you should be able to develop perspective, because perspective is extremely important. What did the Medrash do here? I'm reading Parshas Matos-Masei, and I'm reading about a mitzvah. And the mitzvah is that if somebody killed somebody by mistake, he runs away to a city of refuge. Suddenly the Medrash is giving an interpretation of two verses in Tehillim chapter 25, but it's not just an interpretation in Tehillim. The Medrash is making this mystical connection, or midrashic connection, between what happened in the beginning of creation and the discussion at the end of the book of Numbers. The end of the book of Numbers is being said when the Jewish people are about to go into the Holy Land, 40 years after they left Egypt, which means the year 2488 since creation, 2488. That's almost 2,500 years after the story of the Tree of Knowledge. But the Medrash is now putting together Parshas Bereshis and Parshas Matos-Masei. What is the underlying paradigm of this type of connection, which is frequent in Medrash, it's frequent in Gemara, whenever the Gemara explores Psukim, what we call Agoda, and it's frequent in all of the Midrashic texts of Judaism from the beginning of when these texts were written all the way down to this very day. The premise here is that when there's a mitzvah, like running away to the city of refuge, it's not just an isolated mitzvah. It's somehow connected to the cosmic order. It's connected to the fabric of creation. Or I'm going to put it in these words. Somebody sends out an essay on Sfasemis. He comes to our shiurim in Monsey, Mr. Rottenberg, Mark Rottenberg. So he writes this. I'm just quoting it because it's a very powerful way of explaining it. The basis for all life on earth is water. We all know that. The molecular formula for water is H2O. Because of the fixed configuration of the electrons in the outermost shell of hydrogen, one atom of oxygen must combine with two atoms of hydrogen to form each molecule of water. So that's why the chemistry, the formula of water in chemistry, it's H2O, because every single molecule of water is a combination of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. Can I make a water molecule consisting of H4O? No, I can't. Water is always made up of H2O, because that is how the universe was built. It is engraved into the creation. It's what we call, what the Sfas Emes calls, a choik. It's part of the fabric of creation. This is what makes up water. And the same is true with every single existence. When we understand Torah mitzvahs, we often look at it as just a book of laws. And these laws were given by the creator of the world to the Jewish people or to the world to follow. What the Medrash is teaching you that way is not that way. It's part of the fabric of creation. It's engraved into the very DNA of existence, of creation. It's not just a law that was given to people to practice. No, it's inherent to the structure of creation. Just like physical phenomena that science discovers or physics discovers or chemistry discovers. This is the structure of reality. You can like it, you can dislike it, you can embrace it enthusiastically, you can be upset by it. In the case of water molecules, I don't think anybody is upset by it. It gives us life. Without water, there could be absolutely no life on any level. Most of our body is made up of water, and we grow in our mother's womb in water, and mamish, I think 90% of the red blood cell is water, and 70% of the body, and never mind our planet. I mean, water supports life on every single level. Nobody's upset about it, but this is called the laws of nature, and that's why we study them. There are also there's the spiritual fabric of creation, and that's Torah mitzvahs are inherent to the structure of creation. They're not just laws, they really tell the story of life. That's why the Medrash says, it's not just you're running away into a city. No, this is connected to something that happened in the beginning of creation, and that's why it's all connected. So the running into a city of refuge is a reflection of a dynamic that occurs right in the beginning of creation of Adam Arishon leaving Gan Eden because of the sin of the tree of knowledge. That's a very important premise that we also learn from this Medrash. But we're now back to our question. What is the connection between eating from the tree of knowledge and murder? Next paragraph. To understand the connection between chet etzadas, the sin of eating of the tree of knowledge, and taking somebody's soul, to the point that the Medrash compares the two, which at the surface is difficult to understand. Hine isa b'sifrei Kabbalah. V'huva b'chsidis ala pasuk shoyfich dam ha'adam ba'adam dama yishafich. This is a pasuk that's said in Parshas Noach. I'm just opening the Chumash. As you see in the footnotes, footnote number 8, this is Parshas Noach, Perik Tes Pasuk Vav. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. After the flood, God blesses Noach and his children, and he tells them to multiply and fill the world. And then he gives the instructions about preserving human dignity, every soul. And the expression is, Shoifich dam ha'adam, ba'adam dama yishafech ki b'tzelem Elohim asa es ha'adam. It's an incredible pasuk, which literally means, Shoifich dam ha'adam, somebody who spills the blood of a human being. Through a human being, his blood shall be spilled. This is one of those psukim where there's like a, I forgot the word for it, but there's like the special rhyme where Shoifech dam ha'adam, ba'adam dama yishafech. It goes in one order, and then that order gets reversed in that identical fashion in the opposite direction. You see, Shoifech dam ha'adam, listen to these words. Somebody who pours the blood of man, of a human being, so that the response is ba'adam dama yishafech, exactly the same words in the opposite order. Meaning the energy I give out, I exude, the action that I create becomes a reaction in the reverse. Shoifech dam ha'adam, be'adam dama yishafech. Through a person, his blood will be spilled. Why? Ki b'tzelem Elohim asa es adam. because in the image of God, he created human being. And this is, of course, in the generation of Noach. This is generations before Avram Avinu, generations before Moshe Rabbeinu. This is close to the beginning of creation. I mean, the beginning, it's 1,500 years, 1,600 years after creation. But here we see one of the great revolutions of the Hebrew Bible, of the Tanakh, how to treat human life. Human life, every single human life, is sacred. And it contains non-negotiable dignity and value. And this is true about every single human being upon whom the Pasuk says, Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa esa Adam. Which Adam? Every human person. That's why Rabbi Akiva says in Pirkei Avos, in the Ethics of Our Fathers, the famous expression, Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tzelem. Every human being is cherished and sacred, something special and unique, because every person, female and male, senior citizen and child, people of every color and every race and every ethnic group and every background, were carved, so to speak, in the divine image. And therefore, shedding their blood is something that is considered horrific and considered the epitome of evil in the imagination and in the morality of the Tanakh, of the Chumash, of the Torah. Shoifech dama Adam. And when somebody does do that, he does spill. Shoifech, he murders, he kills, and therefore spills the blood of another person. But Adam dama yishafech. This is not just a small act or insignificant act. No. Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa es Adam. It's like you murdered a piece of God. It's like you murdered God's image in this world. You took the life of God's manifestation in this world. By the way, these are the things that everyone has to know. This is what our youth needs to be educated with. I'm talking about the United States of America and the whole world. It's these types of psukim that embed in human beings from their youth an approach to life, how you look at people, how you deal with people, how you understand what it means to take a life of any human being. I'm just mentioning this as a side note, because imagine if every public school in the United States of America would teach this value, would teach these words, would take a moment of silence to reflect on such concepts. Society would benefit tremendously. We wouldn't have to have metal detectors in our public schools. What Rashi explains this on a legal level. Shoifech dam ha'adam, it's a law. If somebody spills the blood of man, but adam dama yishafech, his blood should be spilled through man, which means he should get the death penalty. Why? Because he didn't kill an animal or a bird, which also you're not allowed to do if it's just in vain for entertainment. Tsar balachayim midayraisa. But here he killed somebody who's the image of God, so it's like you, so to speak, you put a bullet into God's image. Okay, the next pasuk says you should multiply yourself. Now, whenever you have such a pasuk, any pasuk, it right away triggers deep imagination and thought. What does it mean? You pour the blood of man, through man your blood gets poured. On a legal level, it means this is the genesis of the death penalty. Somebody who takes somebody else's life, under certain circumstances, their life may be taken. In Jewish law, that was not an easy verdict to come by. As the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, that a Jewish court that killed once in 70 years is called chayvlan, and they're called a gang of terrorists, of killers. So this is the Mishnah says that one of the great Talmudic sages said that if I would have been in the Jewish court, no person would have ever gotten the death penalty. Shimon Gamliel was upset at him. He said, okay, you would allow murder to happen in your society. This was a very interesting debate. But the point is, this is the concept legally. But there's also, as always, the spiritual concept in this pasuk. So it says in Kabbalah, and it's brought in the teachings of Chassidism, ala pasuk shoifech dam adam b'dam adam dam yishafech. The inyan shoifech dam adam ba'adam hu shayid al yidei she'ish yisrael over aveda, and he shoifech his dam adam de kedusha ba'adam de le'umaza adam b'liyal. Wow. Shoifech dam ha'adam, ba'adam dama yishafech, is explained in Kabbalistic writings to represent something that is very profound. I'm going to translate, and then we'll explain as we go on, because this concept will become clearer as we move on. When a Jew is over Aveda, which means transgresses the will of the divine creator, he is pouring out. Shoifech, shvichas dama means pouring blood. Letting the blood of a person come out of him, which is like when God forbid, somebody stabs a person and kills them. That's shvichas damim. It's called pouring their blood, because their blood spills out. When somebody violates the will of the Creator, it says in Kabbalah, this person is, so to speak, pouring out the blood of the Adam of Kedusha, the human of holiness, and that blood is exiting that Adam and going into Adam de L'umaza, into the Adam which is represented by the person of negativity, of toxicity, which is the counterbalance of holiness in the world. Adam Bliyah, the Adam which is represented by evil or immorality. The Aveira Pirusha shel Oivim Mirishus shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Rishus HaKlippa. Hainu shel Maver Esachayis HaKedusha L'Rishus HaKlippa. The word Aveira indicates that. What does the word Aveira mean? We know the word mitzvah means a commandment. A mitzvah also means a link, a connection. In Hebrew, mitzvah means a connection. What does the word Aveira mean? It's an interesting word. You ever thought about it? The word Aveira we have in the laws of Shabbos. Ma'ivir mirishus l'rishus. Transporting something from one domain into another domain. Bringing it out from one domain and placing it in a new domain. That is called ha'avara. Passing something from one type of location to a new type of location. That is called ma'ivir or ha'avara. What happens by Aveira? By Aveira, he says, you do that. When a person commits a transgression, what am I doing? I am transporting energy from the world of holiness into the domain of unholiness. That's called Aveira. I passed it on. I took chiyus, I took energy that belonged in one domain, and I brought it into a new domain. That's a pretty creative malacha. In fact, it's one of the 39 labors prohibited on Shabbos. But here, it's on a cosmic level. I'm not just taking a key or a book or a bottle of wine and transporting it from my house into the street or to another house. But here, there's the concept of Aveira is a cosmic concept of taking energy of holiness and bringing it into the domain of unholiness. What does this mean, literally? What does it mean? On a very basic level, what the Kabbalah is teaching here is the significance and the cosmic and very deep effect of why an Aveira is forbidden, why certain things God says you should not do. It's not a nice thing to do. That's also true. But it's that there's something really happens. There's a real impact in the world and a real impact in your soul and in your body and in your home and in your life. And what is that impact? Shoifech dam ha'adam. I spilled the blood of man. And this is not just murder for sure, but it's true really with every sin. And what does it mean I spilled the blood of man? This blood belonged in this person. This person is a living organism, and part of life is the circulatory system, which allows the blood to constantly flow through the organism. And as the pasuk says, Hadamu HaNefesh, the blood is the seat of the soul. That's what's responsible for the vitality, the animation, the life force, the oxygen that every single cell in our body receives constantly through the blood circulating throughout our organism, non-stop throughout the day and throughout the night, from the moment a person is born throughout their journey in life. That is where the dam is. Shoifech dam ha'adam means I let that blood spill out. It could be willingly, it could be unwillingly, but that's what happens. Let's take the case of a person who's an addict, for example. Just giving that as a simple example to understand. What happens? What happens is a person takes his energy, his lifestyle, things that he could have done with his life, and instead that energy is being invested and being given, and their soul is sold to the addiction. And now the addiction owns me. I don't own myself. So basically my energy, my productivity, my consciousness, my mind, instead of it being used to promote my life and to make my life better, I basically take that very energy and I give it up. I give it up like to the devil. I give it up to some form of addiction which now owns it. That's a metaphor for this. When I do an Aveira, when I violate the divine will, I'm taking the chiyus, the blood, the life of Adam de Kedusha, and taking out that energy and using that energy to feed a different Adam. What does it mean, a different Adam? A different Adam is the Adam of negativity, the persona of negativity. Or as we say, what is an Aveira? I take energy that belongs to the domain of God, and I take that energy, and where does it go to? I transport that chiyus, that energy, that life, into a domain of unholiness, as will still be explained. This is the meaning of the pasuk in Parshas Emor, V'noikiv Shem Havaya Mois Yumos. Literally, it means somebody who curses the name of God. But what does the word noikiv really mean? Noikiv comes from the word nekev. It means you puncture the name of God. And the result is death. Puncture the name of God? Yes. The Shem Havaya Koi Alo Oiris HaMeirim Bekelim. Shem Havaya, the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, represents the divine energy that is manifested in vessels. It's basically the structure of divine energy manifested and vibrating throughout all of the worlds, including our world. That's called Shem Havaya. The name of Hashem is the divine energy, but it's structured in vessels. V'noikiv hu lashon nekev. Noikiv, we translate as cursing. Really, it means you rupture, you create you perforate, you make a hole. Nekev is a hole. What happens when you rupture the vessel? The liquids, the beverages in it leak out. And where do they end up in? They end up somewhere else, whether it's on the table or on the floor. What happens when there's a hole in the cup? There's a nekev, a hole in the cup. The keli can't contain any more of the energy. So Noikiv Shem Havaya, incredible interpretation. Noikiv Shem Havaya means you rupture the name of God. What's the name of Hashem? A name is always that which allows you to relate to others. It allows others to relate to you. People call you by your name. They relate to you by your name. They don't have access to your inner essence, but I can call you by your name. Name means your name, your reputation. So the name of Hashem is the way the divine energy is structured in vessels in which the energy vibrates through the world. When I do a sin, I rupture that keli. I literally perforate it. I make a hole. And the energy that belongs to the domain of God, to the light and the vessel, where it's wholesome and contained, now suddenly that energy was spilled because the vessel was ruptured, and therefore there's a hole. V'noikiv Shem Hashem. And what's the result of that? The result of that is mois yumos, death. We're going to see what that means. It's not just a sin and a punishment. You do this, you're going to die. No, it's actually a natural result. The punishments in Torah are basically manifestations of the results of the person's actions. So what happens here is there is a certain structure, like a body in which the blood is flowing. V'noikiv, when I rupture that, when I stab, I take a stab at it, and now suddenly the blood leaves the body and the person can't live anymore. The blood that belonged in that place went elsewhere. Spiritually, that's the concept of shoifech dam ha'adam. Ba'adam dama yishofech. There's a noikiv Shem Hashem. I could rupture the name of God and literally make a hole in it and take the energy. That energy is now spilled and it goes into a whole other place. What place does it go into? What does it feed? It feeds the realm of klippa. Klippa means shells, husks. The reality of life in which God is completely concealed and covered over by a husk, by a shell, which means practically that instead of the world operating in a unified, harmonious, divine way, I take that very energy that really belongs to the divine, and everything belongs to the divine because Einaid Malvade, everything is oneness. And through the sin, I take that energy inside of me and inside of the world, and it's now being utilized and manipulated for purposes that are contrary to its very origin and its very essence. Ukashem shu b'chol chet befrat, kain al derech zu b'chet eitzadas, shu sheirish u'mokir kol ha'chatoyim. Shalachay, oynesh ha'missish al chet eitzadas, hu loy u'ledoirosav, mishum shechet eitzadas hu ha'sheirish l'chol ha'chatoyim shel ha'doiros haboyim. Shaydei chet eitzadas nimshechius ha'kedusha la'klippas, v'zeu ha'kesher d'chet eitzadas l'inyan shvichas damim. It's true with every sin, but it's also true with eating from the tree of knowledge, which is considered the beginning of all the sins. And that's why the punishment for death, the punishment for eating of the tree of knowledge, was not just for Adam and Chava, it was for all the generations. Why? Because what happened then is really the source of what's happening constantly. Adam and Chava didn't just eat from a tree one time in history. It created a shift for all generations. We are all part of that story. Every sin that we do is a continuation of what Adam and Chava did, as we will see why. And therefore, what Adam and Chava did affects all the generations, even though I'm not guilty for what he did. But the issue really is that they set the world into motion in a particular way. There was a shift of consciousness and a shift of action. So that sin of Adam and Chava is really the source, it's the root of every distortion in human nature and in human action throughout all of history. And therefore the results of Adam and Chava, of their sin, affects every single generation because it redefines how we live. So through that sin, what happens? The life of holiness goes to a place of klippah, it goes to unholiness. And that's why it's called shvichas damim. It's pouring blood. Where's their murder? They ate a fruit. They didn't kill anybody. But that's the cause and the source of all sins, including the sin of murder, which happens in the next scene. Cain would kill Hevel. That's the second sin. It's not a coincidence that murder is the second sin after eating of the tree. What's the connection? So he says, on a deeper spiritual level, when they eat from that Eitz Hadas, there is a shvichas damim. Not in a physical sense. They didn't they didn't spill anybody's blood. But in a spiritual sense, when they ate from that tree, what happens? The chiyus of Kedusha, there was a rupture in the name of Hashem, Noikev Shem Hashem, Shoifech Dam HaAdam, B'Adam Dama Yishafech, Averes, taking the life force of holiness and transporting it into a place of unholiness. Now, that very life force, that very energy is not in a place of Kedusha, it's in a place of unkedusha, of lack of Kedusha, the opposite of holiness. A person's life is really holy. Everything about a person's life is holy. A person's existence is their relationship with God, because God is the DNA of existence. So just like a person's blood belongs in the body, the life force of the world belongs in holiness. That's what it really is. It's part of holiness. An Aveira is really changing that. It's transforming that chemistry. It's really taking energy that is all holy, it's all divine, and it's being used for a reality, for a perception, for thoughts, words, action that are antithetical to the divine system of creation. That is called shvichas damim, because everything we do has energy. Everything. Every action, every word, every thought, every attitude, every perspective, every feeling. Everywhere I go and anything I do has energy. It has blood in it. Without the flow of the blood, nothing can happen. So therefore, if it's something that's a mitzvah or something that's connected to a mitzvah, it's in the realm of holiness. When I do an aveira, what am I doing? I'm using the energy, I'm using the blood. I'm using the blood of the divine. This is the divine blood, it's the divine energy inside of me and inside everything in the world. But what am I using it for? I'm feeding and I'm bringing it, and it's now fueling a whole different domain. And that is a life, a reality, a perception, a delusion of that which is antithetical to the divine will and the divine plan. That is called shvichas damim. It's literally letting the blood, the visualization of this is pretty dramatic. It's literally creating that rupture in holiness and allowing that blood to flow out, to come out, to gush forth. And now that blood is being wasted, being used, being squandered on things, realities, ideas, actions, words that are the antithesis of holiness. But this still requires a lot of understanding. Even the klippas were created by God. I don't understand. You're talking about this whole unholiness thing. Who created them? God. So they have chayas from God too. So what happens through sin? You're telling me that through sin, you're taking the blood, the chayas, the life of Kedusha, and you're giving life to Klippa. They have life. God created them. They're around. That's why you can do it. There's something called klipa. There's something called husks and shells that eclipse godliness. So what happens through sin? They already have their life force. The explanation is that klipa is kamay shem mitzad habriya in yanam hu kamay haklipa hashemeres alapri. There's klipa the way it was created. What does the word klipa mean? It's like a shell of a fruit. You peel a banana in order to eat a banana. You peel an orange to eat an orange. And you crack the nut to take the nut out of the husk of the nut. Some fruits don't need a klipa. They don't have a shell to protect them. But there's a klipa hashemeres alapri. Klipa means a shell, a container, a husk. Inside of it lay a wonderful, nutritious, beautiful, delicious fruit. You peel the klipa, the shell, and you take out the fruit. Klipa was created by God, but how was it created? What's the concept? It's like the husk that protects the fruit. It's not an enemy of the fruit. When you take a banana, you want to eat a banana or an orange, you know, this ridiculous klipa, the enemy of the orange is obstructing my path to my orange. It's not obstructing your path. It's actually protecting the orange. It's allowing the orange to remain what it's supposed to be, because as it grows on your orange tree, all of the elements of nature can easily distort and destroy the orange, and it's these klippas, these husks, that protect the fruit. It's true, you don't eat the banana peel. You have to peel it in order to access the fruit. Don't confuse the husk with the fruit. But the purpose of the husk is to protect the fruit. V'hainu shinyan ha-klippus k'mayshul mitzad habriya, hine lois u'bilvad she'ein yanam l'nagad el'aylam al'hastir al-ha'kedusha la'adara v'hem meginem al-ha'kedusha u'kemay b'pri gashmi d'kedei sha'pri yitzmach b'tovi yiroi la'achil tzorech li'is klippus she'shemeres la'pri u'magenes alav al derech zo inyan ha-klippus k'mayshul mitzad habriya. Whoa! We talk about klippa, klippa, klippa. He says klippa, the way it was created, not only is it not a foe of holiness, not only is it not a force that opposes holiness or even conceals it or eclipses it, not only not that, on the contrary, it's the protector of holiness, just like the word klipa, just like the fruit. The peel of the orange, the peel of the banana, or again, any other husk, any other fruit that has its peel, whether it's the kiwi, whether it's the watermelon, whether it's the cantaloupe, whatever it is, every fruit that has its peel, the peel is there not to oppose the fruit, to block the fruit, to cover the fruit, to even eclipse it. No. What is it there for? It's there to protect the fruit, to allow the fruit to be able to be what it is, because when the fruit is growing on the tree, it is very vulnerable. And in order for it to be able to grow and ripen and become edible for human or animal consumption, it must have Mother Nature, divine providence. This is really the fascinating world of botany, to study and see how every single fruit and vegetable and legume and grain, all types of foods that grow, every single one has that unique chemistry that allows it to survive and produce and become that unique component that creates our nutrition and has all the properties that we need in order to live. But somehow that seed, when it's planted, has that extraordinary, brilliant wisdom of design to know exactly what the DNA of this fruit should inscribe in its manual production of how to produce me in a way that I will be able to survive the elements and be able to fulfill my purpose, to become ripe and to be worthy of consumption. And therefore, every single tree in the world has a different mechanism, a different blueprint, a different manual, how everything gets produced perfectly to be able to fulfill its purpose. And part of it is, for many fruits, it must have a klippa. If it doesn't have a klippa, if it doesn't have a shell, it's true with all the grain. If you only have the kernel without its chaff, without the husk, it would never survive. Not from the rain and not from the scorching sun. And without rain and without sun, You have no grain and you have no fruits and you have no vegetables. So you have to have these elements. But the heat and the cold and the moisture would never allow it to survive. It would completely destroy it. And therefore you have to have a klippah that protects it. So what's klippah? We always use the word klippah as this horrible thing. The Rebbe says from the perspective of creation, that's not the case. Not only is it not a blockage, not only is it not a conceal, on the contrary, it's an assistant. He said, let's take this immediately and apply it to life. Right away, we apply this to the avoid of a person. Listen to this. You saw I titled the title of today's class, Arrogance is Good for You. What did I mean? Arrogance is bad for you. The beginning of a person's avodah, you have to have a little yeshus. You know what yeshus means? Yeshus means a sense of being, a sense of existence, or maybe you want to call it in English a healthy ego. The Gemara calls it in Saita Daf Hey Shminis Shebishminis. The Gemara says that a Talmud Chacham needs to have an eighth of hubris, of yeshus, of gaiva, an eighth of an eighth. Not a lot, but an eighth of an eighth. That's a 64th. As the Marsha says there, it's one of 64. You divide something into 64 parts, one of that. That's how much hubris you can have. If you have already a 63rd, then it's Samach Gimel is gas. That's arrogance. But 64th is fine. An eighth of an eighth. Shminis shebishminis. In other words, you have to have a little bit of a sense of ego. What does this mean? Listen to this. But pashtasu, on a literal level, it means we're now going to read a sentence, a paragraph that is crucial. It's essential. I can't exaggerate how essential this is to life. When a person comes to serve Hashem, the Yetzer Hara tells him the negative inclination, the voice inside of me that always makes sure to undermine my serenity and my clarity and my focus, comes and says, Sheyachshav la'atzmei, think to yourself, Mi ani umani she'evedes Hashem yizbarach. Who am I? And what am I? That I should have the audacity to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. This is one of the very effective attacks and voices of the negative inclination. Sha'omer tells him, as the handelt sich wegen avodas Hashem yizbarach. The Yetzer Hara, the negative inclination, doesn't always come into you and just say, oh, go to addiction, go do the wrong thing. No, sometimes he speaks lofty words and communicates very noble ideas. The Yetzer Hara tells you, you're dealing here with avodas Hashem yizbarach, with serving God. You're dealing here with the ultimate truth. Melech Malchi Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of Kings, God. Va'ata yedei man batcho matzavcha. And you know who you are. How in the world do you even think you have the capacity to serve God? What a joke. What a contrast. You are lowly. You are a brute. You are a narcissist. You're a loser. You're a traumatized, helpless victim. You have made so many mistakes in the past. You are l'chol deis, a real addict. You're dysfunctional. You're broken. I'm using a couple of adjectives, but the Yetzer Hara is usually smarter, so he uses the right words to be able to get you. You know what you did yesterday. You know what you're going to do tomorrow. You know what your interests are. You know who you are. How dare you? What are you have to be honest with yourself. You are going to build a relationship with God. You're going to serve Hashem, the Yetzer Hara says. He puts in those 4 words, Mi ani umani. Who am I? And what am I? Who am I? What am I? What are you? This arrogant, pompous, self-centered, narcissistic, egomaniac who thinks that the world revolves around him? And now I'm going to serve God? And the Rebbe explains more of what the Yetzer Hara tells you. And here comes this is a very sophisticated Yetzer Hara. He even knows a little Chassidus too. Because the Yetzer Hara says, what does it really mean to serve God? Avodas Hashem doesn't just mean, what does Avodas Hashem mean? How do you serve God? A servant serves the master, and he helps the master, right? When you have somebody helping you in your job or in your home, that person who's serving you, who's working with you, is building your business, cleaning your home, taking care of different responsibilities. They're actually contributing to you. What's Avodas Hashem? We're serving God. Do you ever think about this? This is a question the Baal HaTanya says. What do you mean you're serving God? What, you're enhancing his life? You're cooking food for him? You're cleaning his house? You're running his business for him? You're his chief financial officer? What is this Avodas Hashem? An Eved, Avodah, means you help the person you're working for. I don't hire somebody if that person is not helping you. I mean, certain organizations do that. You hire people just to hire them and then they stay on payroll. Certain companies do that as well. But a functional servant means you're doing something for me. So he says, yes, that's Avodas Hashem. Through our Avodah, we increase, so to speak, divine energy. The Medrash says on the Pasuk, V'ata yigdal no koyach adnam. Moshe Rabbeinu tells Hashem after the story of the spies, let the power of God be strengthened. So the Medrash Rabbah in Eicha, Parsha Aleph says that through the Avodah of the Jews, Moisifin koyach bepamalya shalmayla. They add energy, they increase, so to speak, divine energy. V'chein lahepach, the opposite also. Aydei ha'avodah, heder ha'avodah, matishin kevayachal as ha'koyach shalmayla. Kedisa v'medrash al ha'posik, tzur yilotcha teshi. Through the opposite of Avodah, when I quit my Avodah, you know what happens? I weaken the divine energy. The Medrash says this in Medrash Rabbah Eicha on the Pasuk in Parshas Azinu, Tzur Yilodcha Teshi. Tzur Yilodcha means the rock from which you were born. Teshi became weak through you. Matishin Kirch Shalmayla. When a Jew doesn't serve God, when a Jew detaches himself from Avodas Hashem, what happens? You actually weaken the rock from which you were conceived. Tzur is like the progenitor, the rock, the solid, powerful source from which we come. Teshi means you make it weak. Matishin Kayach Shalmayla. When the Jews don't do the will of Hashem, they weaken the divine energy. So the Yetzer Hara tells the person, so the Yetzer Hara says, now tell me, where in the world do you have the chutzpah to think that you could serve God? What does serving God mean? Not only I do things that it says in the book I should do. It means I have an impact. It means I change the world. It means I change history. It means I affect Kevayachal, the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. That's what Chazal are teaching us. V'ata yigdal ma koyach Hashem. Moisifin koyach. You really have a cataclysmic power. The Yetzer Hara thinks, really? Why don't you look in the mirror and see what a loser you are? You're going to serve Hashem? You think that you're davening, you're learning, your mitzvahs, the way you live, the way you interact with people, what you do in the world, can transform and impact the world in its deepest place, where chas kevayachal, you affect Hashem and the energy of Hashem, and the opposite, when you don't serve God, it weakens the process. Come on! How arrogant can you be? Especially knowing who you are, especially knowing what people have told you about yourself, especially you know who you are, you know your situation, and therefore how can you even have such an absurd thought? And that's why in the beginning of Avodas Hashem you have to have a little yeshes, a little healthy hubris, healthy arrogance, healthy egotism. I won't call it arrogance, but it's a sense of, not arrogance, but self-value, self-dignity. So you won't be affected by the Yetzer Hara, and you'll engage in the service of Hashem, and you'll appreciate how important, how valuable, how amazing, how beautiful. V'nimtza, let's just finish this paragraph and then we'll take a break. V'nimtza, sheyeshezu loizel b'vat she'eni min ha'gedes l'avodas havayel ad rabbi mesayeres alavay. This yeshes, this sense of self-assertion Not only does it not oppose serving Hashem, on the contrary, it helps, it assists. Without it, you could be completely lost. You remember what we spoke about the fruit and the klippah? V'zeu inyan ha-klippus k'mashayu b'tchilas b'yasam koydem achet. V'loi zu b'lvat shlohem menagdem ala kedusha. V'loi zu b'lvat shlohem alimu v'stiru alei ra-kedusha la'adirabba yikmei klippah shemagenes ala pri. Now we'll understand the role of klippah, the way it was designed in the system of creation. When you're looking at that fruit and that shell is not here to block the fruit and eclipse the fruit and obstruct the path to the fruit. No! It's here that the fruit should be able to develop and mature and become ripe and become nutritious and become that fruit that you could consume. It's a klippah, it's a shell, it has to be discarded. That's at a later stage. We'll soon see about that. But initially, this klippah is the best thing that ever happened to the fruit. So when we say the word klippah on a cosmic spiritual level, don't think that klippah is the opposition to holiness, to godliness. No! Don't even think it blocks it and conceals it. No! It's not an enemy and it's not a blockage. What is it? It's a shomer. It's a protector. It allows the fruit to mature. What is this? Is an avodas Hashem? What is klippah? What do we say? What is klippah? Klippah always means the husk that conceals the fruit. But that husk that conceals the fruit is really not trying to conceal the fruit. It's trying to help the fruit develop. Now let's talk about this in a person's life. What do we generally define as klippah? Klippah means any force in reality that conceals the oneness of God. In other words, any reality that puts me and tells me that I'm separated from Hashem. I'm not one with Hashem. In other words, it covers up the truth that we are all divine energy. We are all God's light in this world. That's what Kedusha is. Kedusha means the approach, the perspective that there is oneness. What's klippah? Klippah is the approach that there is separateness. In other words, the divine reality is concealed. So I can feel separate. I can feel detached, dejected, depressed, and severed from my own source. It's like taking the fish out of water. But when you take the fish out of water, it doesn't have its oxygen, it can't live anymore. Klippah is a whole life that God created. So the Rebbe says here, klippah initially is not an enemy to Kedusha. On the contrary, it's a protector. How do we understand this? So he gave this classic example in life. What do we hold about, what do we think of pompousness, or of egotism, or of self-aggrandizement? These are things that are antithetical to holiness. You're an extension of God. We don't try to glorify the self. And yet, he says, if a person doesn't have that inner sense of self-dignity, that inner sense that you matter, that you are powerful, then what? You will not serve God. Your fruit will never develop. The fruit, in fact, will become fodder that will either decompose or will become rotten and will never be able to achieve its purpose. When the human being cannot say to themselves that they matter, when you do not realize your value, your dignity, your impact, you can't begin to serve Hashem. So the beginning of the service of Hashem must require, as he puts it in this Maamer, it requires a little bit of yeshus. What is yeshus here? Yeshus we call klippah. But this type of klippah is not something that eclipses the fruit. It's here to protect the fruit. Why? Because it allows you to begin your process of growing, understanding that your life matters, understanding that you are valuable, understanding that you stand at the vortex of creation, that your actions, your words, your thoughts, your attitudes, your perspectives, your lifestyle has a cataclysmic impact, understanding that you're capable of serving God, of actually contributing to the world, that you matter, that you are needed, that you are an indispensable note in the cosmic divine symphony, and what you do or do not do has a tremendous, tremendous influence and impact, not only on yourself and the people around you, but on the world, on history, on the Creator. Tzur yilotcha teshi or va'ata yigdal makayachadna. Now you might say, why is that klippah? That's Kedusha. Understanding your value, understanding your dignity. We're going to get there. We'll see the next stage when you have to peel the fruit. But this type of klippah, this understanding of yourself as valuable. And yes, you have to look at it as you. You are valuable. That is the power that God gave you. But this is not a bad yeshus. This is not a bad ego. This is not a pompousness that's going to cast you into the abyss. This is a healthy ego, a sense of self-esteem, of appreciating your inner physical and spiritual and cosmic dignity, which God has invested in you to the point that you could contribute something. Here we have a classic example that this quality of self-importance and self-value, the way it's designed by God, not only is it not in opposition to holiness, on the contrary, it is the great protector of holiness. When people cannot understand their value and they think that they're a shmata and they're a loser, there's no way you can even begin to serve God, because the Yetzer Hara wants you to believe that you are worthless and meaningless. And he loves saying that God is infinite and you're a piece of filth and garbage. And then, of course, what I do absolutely doesn't matter. Who cares? Let's take some questions. Okay. I would think that Adam eating from the tree didn't come willingly, because it was the snake who made them eat. That's true. The snake convinced Chava to eat. But ultimately, Chava had to make a decision and Adam had to make a decision. Doing something willingly doesn't mean there's nobody who influences me. There may be somebody who influences me, but yet I'm the one who had to choose to do it. That's why we call it a mazid. Very good question. Next question. We are talking about the sin of killing somebody. What about all other sins, like violating Shabbos or adultery? Is murder the most stringent? Is murder the most stringent of all of them? Yeah, that's the point. The point is that any aveira is a form of murder. Not physically, God forbid. But every Aveda has this element of murder. What is murder? Murder is taking a life and causing the blood to leave the body. Shvichas damim. It's called shvichas damim. Why is murder called shvichas damim? Shvichas damim means literally pouring out the blood. A person's life is a story of the divine. It's God's manifestation in this world. Taking that life is killing that manifestation of God. That manifestation of Hashem is not here anymore. You destroy it, Tselem Elikim, an imprint of God. That chiyus of God in the world is now gone as a result of this act of shvichas damim. In many ways, every Aveira does that. Why? It's shvichas damim. There is the chiyus, there is the energy of the world that is being used for this sin. Let's say I say something that I shouldn't say, or I do something I shouldn't do, or my thoughts go to places where I shouldn't go. That's taking the energy that belongs to Hashem and literally rupturing it and taking that energy and using it and manipulating it and causing it to be spilled into a domain which is the antithesis of the divine, the antithesis of holiness, the antithesis of morality. So I'm taking divine life, I'm taking divine energy, shoifech dam ha'adam, I'm taking divine energy, and what am I doing with it? The energy of my soul, the energy of my brain, the energy of my consciousness, the energy of my blood. I'm taking that energy, it's divine energy, or I'm taking something in the world. It's also divine energy. And I'm literally rupturing it, and that energy, which is really divine, is now spilled. And where does it go to? It's now feeding, it's now being used to create a reality called an Aveira. That's why the word Aveira captures this truth so profoundly. You're ma'ivir mirishus l'rishus. Now, when you think about this, this is telling you something very deep. It's a sin is not just you're doing the wrong thing. It's much deeper, like everything. That's what Pnimi Satir is. Back to what I spoke before about H2O. It's not just you're doing something against the book. You're doing something that is in contrast to the very fabric of creation. The energy that I'm using for an aver, whether I'm eating something I shouldn't be eating, whether I say something I shouldn't be saying, whether I engage in thoughts I shouldn't be engaged in, whether I engage in an action right, that I should not be engaging. Whatever it is. You said adultery, it could be theft, it could be lying, it could be gossip, it could be slander, it could be an act on Shabbos that I shouldn't do. What am I doing? I'm taking the energy of myself, which is really divine, or the energy of something in the world. Yeah, I tear off a fruit on Shabbos. You're not allowed to harvest on Shabbos. That fruit has energy. That tree has energy. That twig, that branch has energy. It's divine energy. And what did I do now? I took the chiyus of my hand, my arm, and the energy of that tree. And what did I do now? I'm using this energy, which is divine, to feed and nurture a reality that is unholy, that is antithetical to the divine system of creation. That is shvichas damim. That is pouring of the blood. So the question in the Maamer was, but klipa has its own energy. You don't have to feed it. So he started this whole explanation that klipa on its own is not unholy. It's a shell that protects the fruit. Next question. The Rambam says in Hilchos Deis that there are views and perspectives, there are ethical standards that you should not only follow in the middle road, but you should go from one extreme. For example, arrogance. Don't only be humble, be exceedingly humble, like Moshe Rabbeinu. And as the Chazal say, somebody who's arrogant denies God. And that's what the Gemara says, when you have arrogance, even a little bit of arrogance, you deserve to be excommunicated. Now, in Gemara in Masechta Soita, Daf Hey, it says, Amar Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, Lo minava lo miktsasa. You should not have even a little bit of arrogance. How does this fit with the halacha? Well, the same Gemara in Soita Daf Hey also brings the idea of Talmid Chacham tzarich sheyehei boi shminis shebeshminis, that the Talmid Chacham has to have a little bit. So the question is, do you look at these opinions as a complete argument or not as an argument? Even if you say it's an argument, elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, every view in halacha, even when there's another view, has to be understood. So you have to understand what is the opinion. But the truth is, it's explained in some places that some say it's not even an argument. And that's going to be the discussion we're going to learn about, that there's a difference in the beginning of Avodah or later in Avodah. Very good comment. We'll still get back to this. The Baal Shem Tov says, this is in Tzavos HaRivash and in Hagas Yisharis. U'lepa'amim tzarich laharis gavos b'fnei b'nei adam mishum kavod ha'boire, k'may shomer chazal talmud chacham tzarich shei b'ich echad mishminis shebeshminis, rak shetzarich lizoyer ma'od sheyachshav ba'is ha'shah b'shiflos atzmei v'yomer b'liba ani b'emes shafel ma'od. U'masha ani yoyse gavos u'lekvoid ha'boire yizbarach shel atzmei ani tzarich eina tzarich shum gavos shani terlas v'layish mali kavod v'gavos avil machshav k'tana. Yeah. The Baal Shem Tov says, you're quoting in the comment, that a person sometimes has to display a certain sense of exaltedness, but even then, it's in a way of humility, because I'm doing it as a servant of God. That itself is in a way of humility. Very well, and the Maamer will continue developing this theme. God willing, we will explore it in our next year, which is going to be Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m. There will be a shir Thursday morning, and there will also be a shir Friday morning, 7:30 a.m. I also want to take this opportunity of telling you that tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, 9:30 a.m., we have our weekly class for women, but men can also tune in. That's right here on the yeshiva.net or on Zoom, and you can also ask your questions. That's going to be tomorrow morning. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m., we're going to be learning Likutei Sichos Parshas Pinchas, Volume 13, an incredible interpretation in Arashi about the Carbon Talmud and Moshe searching for a new leader. That's going to be Tuesday, 8:30 p.m., Parshas Pinchas, and everybody is invited to that. Also right here on the yeshiva.net, that's not going to be on Zoom. In the meantime, I wish you a beautiful, meaningful, inspiring, uplifting day, and a day filled with Avodas Hashem. Hatzlacha Rabbi Chazak.
This class is brought to you by the yeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.